then you look at everything that comes from consumption and purchases and what we're told, from fashion to society to magazine covers to the programs that we listen to and the advertising. There's so much influence, even who you're around on a regular basis, from your family to who you're married. Like, Carrie and I have a lot of similar beliefs. We've kind of worked our way through to get to this point, but we think differently than other married couples because we've had different conversations. What's your win? Do you know? Well, if you do know, life gets a whole lot better. So we figured we need to bring in a 26-year-old expert to talk about this.
With all of his life experience behind him.
The worst part about this man is that people refer to him as a young version of me. So I feel bad for him. Like, first off, he's the only person with a beard that looks like a baby. It's pretty amazing, He's like, this will give me credibility. No, why does that baby have a beard? I don't understand. He wrote The And Asset, A-N-D, The And Asset. I've had multiple people over multiple years say, hey, do you know who Caleb Williams is? Like, yeah, man, I know him. We're friends. But he's made a splash in the financial world at a very young age. And we're looking to do more things together. And he's here at this cabin because we've been hanging out all week. And so he showed me a video that he did on Instagram. It's so aligned with this topic. And so Corey and I said, hey, you jump up here and let's put you on video. So good to have you here, man.
Dude, it's good. It's good to be here.
Bringing the average age down here.
I'm bringing the average age, hoping to bring the looks up a little bit.
No, just the age thing.
Yeah. See, the thing is, as you get older as a man, it's a distinguished look, the crow's feet by our eyes.
Like, sure, you have the whole Zac Efron thing going for you right now, but it'll catch up with you.
Zac Efron, if he shed the muscles.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Like,
I got nothing.
Before he lifted a weight.
And
What's
that's
your
the
win?
episode, everyone.
What's your win?
Thank you
Not
for watching.
being on this podcast
Yes.
with Garrett. That's my win.
What does being self-aware mean to you? And then how can someone listening to this or watching this become more self-aware?
I think the ability to become self-aware, what that means to me is the ability to filter out the external influences. And for such a big part of my life, I thrived off the community I was in, the perception that I had, people's perception of my success. These were all things that validated my worth. But the reality is on the inside, I was the 13-year-old kid that nobody wanted. And it didn't matter what I accomplished. That was my truth, and that was my reality. And you and I were talking about this earlier this week. There's the concept of you know what you know what you don't know, but you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. And the reality is that's normally 80 to 85% of someone's reality is you don't know what you don't know. And so there was such a large part of my life that no matter the success that came, no matter the accomplishment, it was always empty. And it was because I was unaware of how I viewed myself. And so when I started to look internally, and that was forced upon me through a variety of different circumstances, hollow victories, empty trophies, 2 depressions, anxiety attacks. That made me sit down and really ask what is going on? Mm-hmm. On the surface, I should have happiness. I should have, I've accomplished what most people are still trying to get to. So why is this empty? Right. And it was because I was empty on the inside. And so when I started to go back and do some work, and that was through a variety of different modalities, I've done traditional therapy, I've done talk therapy, I've done journaling, I've done psychedelics. It was only really until I started to kind of crack the nut and see what was inside that I started to kind of shed that view of myself and become more self-aware and how I show up in certain circumstances and how certain circumstances trigger a certain behavior or pattern within me.
I love how you say being aware of the influences. Is that what you said? Mm-hmm. Because it's so true. Is if you can become aware of what influences you, that's it.
Yeah.
And so
you build a fortress around yourself. And I don't mean to keep others out, but to stop those influences from leaching in so you can be within purity of yourself.
Is there a question or two that someone can ask themselves or the people that are closest to them to help them understand what influences them?
That is a good question within itself. A question for a question. I don't know if I actually have the answer for that. I'm going to put some thought into that.
I mean, what are
Do
they?
you have a book
What are
on
they
that, Garrett?
watching? What are they reading? Yeah.
Don't
Hey,
encourage.
hey. I will soon.
Okay. All right. I'm just curious.
I think, it's pretty easy to understand when someone's watching CNN, MSNBC all day, or if someone's watching Fox News all day. It's really easy to see the dividing lines, what the hot button issues are going to be, and what their belief is. Also, you get on social media, and it's amazing if you go look at someone else's social media that thinks a lot different than you, and look at their news feed, and then look at your news feed and watch how different that is, and how much influence happens there. Even watching that documentary on Netflix about social media, which one? What's that?
Social Dilemma.
Yeah, Social Dilemma.
Yep.
That'll show you influence, and I mean, it's something that my wife got NLP certified, neuro-linguistics programming, and man, you just start to see like all of the verbiage. And one of the things that Corey said, he goes, words cast spells. Hey, pardon the interruption, but I've got a gift for you. Actually, two. Killing Sacred Cows, my New York Times bestseller, hit #1 on Wall Street Journal, and my most popular book of all time, What Would the Rockefellers Do? Killing Sacred Cows is like a permission slip to have more success and avoid the missteps and myths around finance. And What Would the Rockefellers Do is taking these kind of big billionaire technology and ideas and bringing them to the masses. So it's a step-by-step financial system where you can start with as little as I did when I was 19 at $50 a month. So if you go to GarrettGunderson.com/offer, give me your email address, and I'll just shoot those books right over to you so you can enjoy and learn at your own pace. And so when you listen to music, and you watch movies, we have the four personas: the miser that plays a game called preservation, the conservative that plays a game called accumulation, and that's not a political affiliation, the striver that plays a game called status, and the high roller that plays a game called opportunity. So my kids know what those are. So we watch Parks and Rec, and they're like, oh, the character that Aziz plays is the high roller. The character that, Leslie plays is the striver. The character that Ben plays is the conservative, and the character that Ron plays, that's the miser. So we can just see it, and then you see people look to identify themselves in these characters, and then you look at everything that comes from consumption and purchases, and what we're told, from fashion to society to magazine covers to the programs that we listen to and the advertising. There's so much influence, even who you're around on a regular basis, from your family to who you're married. Carrie and I have a lot of similar beliefs. We've kind of worked our way through to get to this point, but we think differently than other married couples because we've had different conversations and we have different travel. I'm telling you, if someone travels abroad, it expands their mind like no other. My kids were afraid when we went to Italy, then the world became small.
Can we send him to some other places?
Did you also know that I'm an Italian citizen? I mean, does that make me sound cool or like an asshole?
No, but I'm in complete alignment. For me, my greatest teacher was expanding kind of like my awareness. And so you start to see a variety of different ways of life in different countries, and that gives perspective.
Totally. And I went to Korea and taught English for 3 months when I was 18 years old. I went there because I thought I was going to model. I taught English. Who needs a 6'3" white dude in Korea? What was I going to model? Hey, here's clothes that don't fit you. Great, but that's how naive I was. So I go there and I go to this movie, and the beginning, trailers. They had like a public service announcement. So it's in Korean, but they show the English subtitles, and it's about this couple that gets married. And the woman's staying at home, but she's running her air conditioner. And I'm there during the monsoon season, and so they were having power outages and things like that. So they're talking about her getting aircon disease, is how it translated. And so when she stopped running her air conditioner during the hottest time of the day and used a fan, just a little tiny fan, she was sweating, but she was super happy and no longer sick. And I'm 18 years old, and it was the first time I thought, wait, this is propaganda. And I'm here in Korea, and I can see it because I live in America, but how much of America was I indoctrinated with in propaganda? So immediately, here were my insights. I'm like, oh, I grew up in a rural town that told me America was the only free country. I heard that over and over. So I believed other countries had curfews and martial law. And all of a sudden I go to Korea, I'm like, wait, I go out anytime I want. They're just as free as I am. And yet I believed I was more free. Second, and this is a little harder to admit, I thought because I was American that I was favored. I live in Utah, where the Mormons believed that, the founders were now rebaptized and became Mormon and this kind of stuff in the afterlife, and that God favored them and gave them these spiritual doctrines that turned out to be the United States, Constitution and everything else. I mean, sure, they were enlightened owning slaves, but whatever. This was the belief. So I started thinking, oh, well, I'm from America, so I'm somehow better. Then I go there, I'm like, dude, these Koreans are amazing. They're loving people. They're so kind. I enjoy going out with them when I'm teaching them English. And, it was just like an eye-opening experience that had me see how much more connected we are and how we're all human beings. And this whole notion of me versus you and us versus them, and they're the bad guys and we're the good guys, was just a bunch of propaganda. And so think about how influenced we are. There's people that hate each other because of which baseball team they like. Yep. There's people that hate each other because which neighborhood they grew up in. I mean, we see entire countries that have been at war for how long. And as a matter of fact, the original vision of the founding fathers in America were that we wouldn't get involved in wars in Europe because it had been only filled with war throughout history, and yet we still did. So we just watched that divisiveness has been something that has gained power for some, and for whatever reason, people like Napoleon wanted to conquer and have more things. That influences so many people, and fear is one of the major influences that leads us astray.
It's powerful, man.
So that's a long answer to a short question.
What was the question? I can't even remember anymore.
It was really a monologue on the power of influence.
He asked if I'd ever been to Italy, is what I recall. That's how I heard that question. So Caleb,
actually,
you turn this on the table on us and you start asking us a bunch of questions. But
I was just about to do the same thing to him.
What do you do for self-awareness, and what do you do for self-love?
Yeah. Number one, I really, really try to get clear on. Well, I'll take a step back. I think about my death a lot. Not from a morbid, like I'm afraid to die. It's like, oh, when I'm dead, what really mattered? My legacy, quite frankly, doesn't really even matter because we don't even remember some amazing people in history. Mm-hmm. So what is going to be the ripple effect that moves on? And there was one thing that I kind of thought of as like one of the most powerful things that we can do is actually make a video for our funeral, which again sounds weird, but it gets us thinking today, what would I say at the most vulnerable / receptive moment of potentially my legacy? And it's interesting when you do that, it comes down to relationships, it comes down to where I'm spending my time, why in the world am I worrying? And it really purifies like why I do, and whenever I'm afraid or whenever I'm prideful or whatever I'm like trying to get greed, I'm like I'm gonna be dead and I'm gonna be naked before I know it. And so that's kind of what I do to try to like get me really focused on what matters, and it's been something that has worked for me and helped me give perspective.
Cool.
Now, is that something that
Garrett wanted to make jokes, but he's like, all right, I probably shouldn't.
No, it's actually that I filmed the video that's 13 minutes that is the beginning of my estate plan. So there's a link.
Yeah.
And so it's the preamble, and it's like just a video of like what we stand for as a Gunderson family. And it's more of like, hey, I want you to choose your own path and find what speaks to you. But love is really this binding thing. And if we could, even when COVID hit, I sat down with my kids. I'm like, hey, I just want to let you know, like there's a lot of fear going on right now, but I just want to let you know, no matter what your belief is, no matter what happens through all this, there's nothing you could do that would make me love you less.
Wow.
And they're like, no, that's not true. We could behave better. I'm like, no, you could disappoint me.
What
that's
about
different.
Roman's new haircut?
Oh my gosh. It's so ridiculous. Hope you enjoyed What's Your Win. For me, it's discovery on a daily basis. Getting more clear about what to remove from my life, what to embrace, and define the rules of the game from my perspective. I want you to do that in your own life. So dive into yet another episode so you can get clear about your win, remove the obstacles and distractions, and have a better life and win before you begin.